What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Steve and I want to get into this right off the bat. We haven't talked about it yet, Steve. Jey Uso is no longer the World Heavyweight Champion. We saw it was a fantastic World Heavyweight Championship match in Phoenix, Arizona last week between Gunther and Jey Uso. WrestleMania rematch. Sleeper hold countered into another sleeper hold, countered into another sleeper hold, countered into another sleeper hold, countered into, you guessed it, another sleeper hold. What are your thoughts moving forward? I think Gunther has been booked ever since he came to the WWE repackaged, even from Walter, as like this dream killer.
Yeah.
And that's like exactly what he was in this scenario to Jey Uso, because Jey Uso was the lovable underdog story who had the fans behind him going into WrestleMania. You beat the almighty Gunther, and then his first rematch, he just wins it back because that's what he is. He's a dream killer. And he didn't have to do it in like a heel-ish way. He didn't cheat. There was no thumb to the eye. There was no low blow. Nothing. Just straight up old school professional wrestling. Like that was traditional, old school Harley Race-esque traditional wrestling. And Gunther wins it with a sleeper hold. And all of a sudden we're back to square one with Gunther as our world champion.
No, honestly, Jack, I think you hit the nail on the head. That is what Gunther is through and through, and that's how his persona for the rest of his career is going to be. He just wins, and he does it in ways that aren't pretty. But if you look at the WrestleMania match compared to the match that we got on Monday Night Raw, I'll take the Raw match tenfold compared to what we got at WrestleMania. And I think that's why the build was so interesting going into that Monday Night Raw, because you're like, okay, this match can't end with either guy losing because somebody's going to lose stock. I thought we were going to get a run-in, failed cash-in, or something crazy just to eliminate Gunther getting pinned or choked out again, or Jey dropping the title. But what they did was just give Gunther this, again, I'm using, this might be the word of the day for me, the pedestal, to show that he is a killer. And that is all Gunther needs to be. It's very Harley Race. It's not fancy wrestling. Gunther is a straight up European style wrestler. It's a very boring style of wrestling for North Americans, but I think Bully Ray put it perfect when I was listening to the Busted Open podcast. Bully Ray said the last 5 minutes of that match was perfect in every sense. They didn't need to do anything except for that, and they told more of a story than they did at WrestleMania, and I agree with that tenfold. Gunther being world champion is a very interesting choice in this dynamic. We obviously see where this is going, and it's going to the Goldberg-Gunther match that we're probably going to get in Atlanta, Saturday night's main event. What is that, July or August? No, July. So, yep. Yeah, we can see where it's going. I think we were all very entertained by Rikishi's reaction to Jey Uso dropping the world title. But my overall feeling on this is it really damaged Jey. And unless they're planning on keeping Jey off TV, which they're not, because surprise, he's the fourth man in the King of the Ring qualifying match, which we can get into a little bit after. I think this should have been a moment to keep Jey away because of how hard he worked that 6 months leading into WrestleMania, and keep his package, but build something else around him for him to come back at like SummerSlam and take out whoever the world champion is, hopefully Gunther, and have that one more feud or whatever, or have him drafted over to, you know, SmackDown and add him somehow into the picture with the John Cena conversation right now. You know what I mean? But right now, I don't see the value in Jey being in King of the Ring, because King of the Ring is to put people over into a position that they're not already in, and Jey's already in that position. You look at the Stone Colds, you look at the Bret Harts, you look at even the Wade Barretts. Everyone who kind of won King of the Ring was pushed into a higher than mid-tier into that main event, giving that opportunity to be focused on a lot more. Some took the ball and some didn't. Jey already has the ball. They already handed him the rock. He's the number one merch guy. If you look on WWE Shop right now, it's like 10 versions of the Yeet shirt. You know, he's doing what he needs to do to make the company money, and all he has to do is say one word. You know what I mean? So taking the title off him and then putting him in the King of the Ring is kind of like pushing him 4 steps back in my mind. So it's hard to really see the vision for Jey Uso right now.
The only thing that I could use to disagree with that statement, Steve, is that everybody currently who has advanced in the King of the Ring is a former WrestleMania main eventer. Orton, Rhodes, and Zayn, right? And I'm going to assume Jey Uso is going to win his qualifying Fatal 4-Way on Raw tomorrow.
Yeah.
Unless they pull a swerve and someone takes out Jey Uso and then they write him off TV. Because that could happen too.
Yeah.
But I'm going to assume Jey Uso is winning that match, and we're going to get Cody versus Jey, Randy versus Sammy, and then, like we talked about the other day, any mix and match of Rhodes and Orton, or Orton and Uso, or Uso and Zayn, or Zayn and Rhodes. There's no mistake that you can make there. But because there's so many big names in the King of the Ring, like they're not utilizing King of the Ring this year like they did last year. Like Gunther beating Randy Orton, like that puts Gunther on an even bigger pedestal from the mid-card and intercontinental title scene to the world title scene. This year, they're using it as a way to set up whatever main event they're going to have for SummerSlam, whether it's Gunther versus maybe Jey again, and Jey earns his spot back to have that rematch, or they do Gunther versus Zayn potentially, or they just do Cena versus Rhodes, which I think is kind of the obvious choice there with Cody Rhodes. I feel like Cody Rhodes loses some stock if he loses the King of the Ring at this point, if anybody. But Jey Uso, I don't think he necessarily loses stock, because even without the World Championship, he's still the number one merchandise seller in WWE. He's still going to yeet out every last arena that he's in. I think from a fan perspective and from a popularity perspective, it doesn't hurt him at all. I knew he wasn't going to hold the world title for that long. Like I could have seen it maybe lasting until SummerSlam at the latest before they took the title off of him, whether it was Gunther, whether it was Seth Rollins, whether it was anybody else. But I think Jey Uso's run as world champion to this point served its purpose.
I think my biggest disappointment, and I agree with you, now that you spill it out that way with everyone that's still involved, I actually think it's the other way around, though, for the King of the Ring. I think everything's being built around Sami Zayn on this one for King of the Ring. But that's nor here nor there. I look at this for Jey Uso, like he didn't even defend on a PLE. You know, that's the hard one. It's like you're world champion, but it's like you got your big victory at, you know, WrestleMania, but you didn't really get to show off and get those experiences of defending one of the biggest prizes in WWE on any main shows. You know, I would have loved to see him defend in Saudi Arabia. I would have loved to see him defend and maybe lose at SummerSlam. I think that's a WrestleMania SummerSlam. That's no title run to like shake your head at and be like, oh, that was a failed test or opportunity. No, it's not. You know, 2 major PLEs, the 2 biggest PLEs for WWE, and you ran between the 2. Awesome. Great storytelling.
I thought Damian Priest had a great run with the world title, and that was literally from WrestleMania to SummerSlam last year.
Exactly. So, but it just felt, I think it was 2 defenses, 52 days he had the title, and it just, I don't like when they make the title look like an accessory to something else. And that's what
what it kind of what it felt like to me. And it's a completely different reign that was a lot longer than Jey's, but it kind of felt like Kofi Kingston's WWE Championship run, where it's like he had his moment. It was an awesome moment.
Yeah.
But like he never really had like a feud after that made you think like he deserved to be in that main event spot. Like the fans wanted it in the moment. But it's like getting a new car, and then like the first month or 2, it's awesome. And then you kind of just like get used to it. And then you start filling it with like all of your garbage and crap like you would any other normal car.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, you just got tired of it. By the time that Lesnar took the title off of him, you were pissed off that he kind of just squashed him in 10 seconds. But at the same time, you're like, okay, like Kofi Kingston is not Brock Lesnar. He's not John Cena. He's not Randy Orton. They gave him the ball for 7 months.
Yeah.
But, like, you really have a feud that made you excited about the WWE Championship scene? I personally didn't think so. And I feel like even though Jey Uso didn't really get the full chance to see what he could have been as world champion, it was very similar in the sense, like, when he loses, I'm not gonna be that disappointed.
Yeah, and it comes down to it that Jay's not. It's still main event Jey Uso. Jey Uso is going to have title opportunities and potentially more title runs in his career. It's not like Jay, being the veteran that he is over the last 15 years, is, you know, on his final legs in the business. Like, Jay's what, late 30s, mid 30s. He's got many more years in him to go and get more titles. It's just, it felt so weird just to have so much stock and build to, you know, Yeet Mania, if you want to call it, and have him kind of run with the world title. It looked good on him. I liked it. But people saying that Jay's not main event caliber, like, I don't agree with that at all. I think he has put in the hours and taken that proverbial brass ring that he was given, and he ran with it, and he's done an amazing job, especially on the marketing side, to build himself as a main eventer, and we can't turn our nose to that. Seeing him, as we've been talking, seeing him in this King of the Ring, literally everyone he could face has been an ally of Jey Uso, so we could see something very devious happen in these next couple of weeks going into King of the Ring for Jey Uso. So yeah, it's a nice spot for him to be in. I've completely turned what I originally started talking about to, I'm now on your side of things, saying that, you know, Jay could have a great opportunity here with the King of the Ring. But I look at it and it was just disappointing. Like, he didn't even have like anyone to really feud with for those 51 days. It was kind of like the hangover that never ended.
Who would you have booked for him throughout the summer, though, to have him defend that title against?
Sammy.
Because when you look at Gunther, okay, Goldberg, Saturday night's main event, potentially Sami Zayn / Jey Uso for SummerSlam. Beyond that, Gunther as a heel could have good matches with, like, say, a Cody Rhodes, or, you know, even a CM Punk or another Randy Orton match with Gunther. I'd sign up for that. Like, there's people there that you could plug and play with. Jey Uso on the other side, except for Seth Rollins, it's like you'd have to turn Sami Zayn heel, like you were alluding to.
And they had it. They had it on the celebration night, the Raw after Mania. They had it. You even saw Sammy hint at it for a split second while Jay was up on the ropes. It's like Sammy could pull him off and just beat him down. There it is. Yep. There's your run all the way into Saudi Arabia and break the hearts of the fans in Saudi Arabia that Sammy gets a world title shot against Jey Uso in Saudi Arabia and Jay wins, and then you run it to SummerSlam and Sammy takes the title. Okay? There's one big one. Guess who else was in the ring? Jimmy. The feud between Jimmy and Jay, that match at Mania, literally stunk the place up. It was one of the worst, most recent matches I can think of for what it could have been. Give the jealous brother the opportunity to take out the twin. You know, give the older brother, because Jimmy's older, right? They could tell that whole story. You know, and give Jimmy the feud. You could have Seth. You know, so there were guys and opportunities there. They just didn't pull the trigger on it.
But here's the thing. If you turn Sammy and or Jimmy heel the night after WrestleMania during the celebration with the three, you got to look at it in a much grander scheme of what they were trying to pull off with other stories that are also going on. Like that night, Braun Breaker revealed himself as a Paul Heyman guy and joining forces with Seth Rollins. And then later, Bronson Reed, right? Mm-hmm. The bigger story on Monday Night Raw is that Seth Rollins is building this huge faction, and they want to put the strap on him long term. Now, if you turn Sami Zayn heel and put the title on him, it's like, well, he finally got to that point where he is a credible world champion, but you want him to be that villainous heel world champion when you're already setting up Seth Rollins to be that main event villainous heel, right? Where like Sami Zayn could be a villainous world champion, but like he doesn't have Braun Breaker, Paul Heyman, and Bronson Reed by his side, you know?
Fair.
Like you can't have like two big heels kind of going at it. I think that match happens down the line, especially now that I feel like the idea of Seth Rollins cashing in on the WWE champion makes a whole hell of a lot more sense.
Yeah.
I could see Sami Zayn turning heel and kind of being included in that world title picture. Who knows? Maybe Jey Uso wins the title back from Gunther at one point. Maybe we haven't seen the last of Jey Uso, and then you tell that story between Sami and Jey. I feel like it would have been way too close to turn Jimmy heel again on Jey. Like that would have been like within a year and a half of him doing it the first time.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been rushed. And I think both of them would agree. Like you did not see the best version of Jimmy versus Jey one-on-one.
No.
Not even close. I think there's actually a video of Jimmy telling his daughter to get off of her phone. She was sitting there ringside,
Yeah.
and he's like about to like hit a kick or something.
Yep.
And he's up against the rope, and he just goes, "Get off your phone."
Yeah.
Like he wasn't even interested in the match.
Yeah.
It was a very vanilla match. Then they had their big moment in the main event the next night with Jey spearing Jimmy off of the stage, which was probably the coolest moment that they've ever shared, and it wasn't even in their match.
No.
But like that match could happen down the line too, if told right. I still think Jimmy Uso needs to get on the same level as Jey Uso, though. I don't think Jimmy Uso can have that match without having like a similar main event level run as Jey Uso, and I think he's fully capable of it. I think Jimmy Uso is probably the funniest Samoan out of all of them in that bloodline. And I think everybody would tell you that too.
I think there was a video of Truth. Oh no, it was Jay and Truth, I believe, last year, and they asked who's the funniest person in the locker room, and it was unanimous across the locker room that Jimmy is the funniest person, and it's like I believe it. I believe it because the things that you see, and it's kind of funny because now we're getting it from Solo too, and I know we're getting off track, but Solo's funny, dude. Like everything he does is just gold, and I hope there's something for him in the future. But yeah, Jimmy needs to get to that next level, and it's kind of funny because one word got Jey Uso into where he's at, and he just turned into the life of the party. So I think Jimmy needs to find that life of the party moment, and we'll see that feud happen again in about a year or two. So it'd be good.
It sucks for Jimmy because I think he said it first. I think Heat was Jimmy's, and then it just caught on fire with Jey. So it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
That's out of your control.
So now we go to the other side, and this video has been about Gunther and Jey. We clearly know that it's gonna be Goldberg at Saturday night's main event in July. We've already referenced that once or twice. Is this the right move for Gunther in the World Championship?
I think you book that match regardless if there's a world title on him. Like I don't think you needed the world title for this match with Goldberg. Because I think this is going to be a one-off for Goldberg. I think this is his retirement match.
This
right?
is the retirement match.
It's going to be in Atlanta, Georgia, his home state, his home city,
where he won
and he's
the
going
world
to go
title
up against the guy that he built the feud with all the way back at Bad Blood, in Gunther. But like, did you need the world title? Not necessarily. This could have been as similar as Gunther having a great match with Pat McAfee, but then humbling Pat McAfee. It's going to be the same thing where Gunther's going to get humbled. He's going to get speared a couple of times, maybe a jackhammer as well. But at the end of the day, Gunther's either going to put Goldberg to sleep or, I mean, he's probably going to put him to sleep. You didn't need the world title. But at the same time, I don't know what longer term stories they're telling with Gunther, so we don't really know. We just got to let them do their thing, right? Shut up and watch.
For the Goldberg match, I disagree because Goldberg won the world title in Atlanta in WCW, and the world title is like synonymous with Goldberg because of his legendary record run.
I get it, but it's not the same title.
Oh, I agree to disagree.
It's a title that started with a lineage of Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, Damian Priest, Gunther, Jey Uso, and now Gunther again. Like there's no other, like they're paying homage to, you know, the Harley Race and the Dusty Rhodes Workers Championship, but like it's not the same title.
Okay, fair, but this is WWE's version of the big gold belt, and they clearly made it look like the WCW World Championship, which then goes back to the Harley Races and all those guys. So it's maybe a visual representation of that. And that's why WWE decided when Goldberg does come back, the visual of Goldberg getting the one up on Gunther on a Monday Night Raw and him holding up that title before Saturday night's main event, that's the image they want. They want Goldberg holding that world championship, whether it is part of the lineage or it isn't.
You think he's gonna win?
No, God, no. But I just say, like, you know how, like, they'll do a promo segment and Goldberg says, like, you're next, and spears the shit out of him and then picks up the title and is like, okay, this is coming to me. You know, that kind of image. No, God, no, I don't. I would never hope for that on the WWE universe ever, to have Goldberg hold a world championship in WWE again. No.
Because I get it's a different regime, and I'm shocked that, like, this regime's actually giving Goldberg a match because he hasn't competed in years. But, like, we saw it in the past regime. Goldberg versus Bray Wyatt, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar, Goldberg versus, I mean, there's been multiple instances where he kind of just, like, came in and took the title and took a lot of, steam off of whoever he was facing.
Yeah.
Because he's Bill Goldberg and he's a star.
Yeah.
Right. But, like, he was a star. He's not a star now.
No.
So, like, this has to be a situation where it's a great match, great build. He gives the flowers to Gunther at the end of the day. Like, when Goldberg beat Kevin Owens for the Universal title, like, he didn't need the title for that match with Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 33. I would have very much loved to seen Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho in a main event story for the Universal Championship at WrestleMania 33.
Yeah.
Lesnar versus Goldberg didn't need it, but they put the title on it anyways.
Yeah. And that just shows the difference between the regime that we have now and the regime we had then. And it was, people can say, Vince McMahon didn't have his favorites. He had his favorites, and his favorites were the big guys that, you know, the old school wrestling mentality was big boys that just can hit hard and not athletically really move. Like, give all credit to Goldberg and Brock Lesnar for how they were when they were younger. But 40-year-old Brock Lesnar versus 50-year-old Goldberg, for me, is just like, and I'm just throwing age numbers out there, I don't know, but it's just not what we need to see. And Gunther, I think, is doing a really good solid for WWE and potentially moving into this feud, because Gunther could be doing so much more. And, you know, giving Goldberg his flowers because of that thing at Bad Blood, I get it. Goldberg does need a retirement match, even though he's injured himself several times building to this. I'm just hoping that this match turns out to be something decent compared to what we got between Goldberg and, say, Undertaker in Saudi Arabia, because
that's not a fair comparison. That was the worst match ever, right? That was the worst, most overhyped match of all time between two legends that just never faced each other in their careers.
Yeah,
it's great on paper. It's the same thing to, like, a couple years ago, if you finally wanted to book Undertaker versus Sting.
Yeah.
On paper, phenomenal. Like, we get the nostalgia factor of that match finally getting to take place, but the in-ring performance, like, someone would have gotten hurt. It wouldn't have been pretty. Where, like, this time around, I think Gunther is young and talented enough to carry this match.
I think that's why they are comfortable with Gunther in this position.
And it's going to be interesting too, because Gunther's known for slowing things down in the ring. Goldberg's used to coming in and just hitting a spear and hitting a jackhammer.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll see what kind of story and what kind of match that they actually tell. Is it going to be like a long 25-minute wrestling match, or is it going to be the 5-minute finisher fest that we're used to having with Goldberg?
Yeah, exactly. So to end it off, final question, Jag. Who does Gunther drop to?
The guy that's going to come back in a few months and turn babyface and become the #1 star in WWE again.
You say Gunther drops
Drew
to
McIntyre.
Oh, Drew. Okay. I was going to say, you saying he's going to drop to Roman? What? Drew McIntyre.
No, Roman is a megastar on his own. Roman Reigns doesn't have to be a champion ever again in his entire career.
Facts.
And, like, that'd be fine. He's going to main event WrestleMania every time he's there.
Yeah.
Drew McIntyre would be the perfect guy to dethrone Gunther this time around.
I'm okay with it.
Jey Uso was the right guy at the right time the first time around. It just clicked. It was WrestleMania season. The fans loved Jey Uso. The merchandise sales were up. Triple H took a chance, and it paid off.
Yep.
It got Jey Uso to that next level, but it wasn't going to last forever. Drew McIntyre could beat Gunther for that world title and be champion for 2+ years, and I don't think anybody would get sick of Drew McIntyre.
No,
He is an elite storyteller and an
Yep.
elite promo artist on the microphone, to this point where, like, he deserved the time off that he's getting right now, not only to treat certain injuries, but because the dude's probably mentally burnt out from absolutely crushing it.
Yep.
Day in and day out, storyline after storyline. He took this Drew McIntyre versus Damian Priest feud that nobody really understood, nobody really even wanted, and turned it into a thing that made perfect sense.
Yep.
After a year of storytelling with Punk and Rollins and everybody else that screwed Drew McIntyre, who was there benefiting? Damian Priest. Like, he was able to tell that story and get us all invested.
Yep.
To where when they had their street fight in Vegas, it was a great match.
Yeah.
And then they had the Fatal 4-Way with Jacob and an LA Knight at Backlash. Phenomenal. And then the steel cage match, I think Damian had to go over in that match, but then you write Drew McIntyre off after that in a perfect way with the concerto. Like, Drew McIntyre deserves to be put on that, and I'll use the word again, pedestal, when he comes back following his brief hiatus, whether he's gone for the next 6 months or whether it's 2 to 3 months. I think when Drew McIntyre comes back, you put him on Monday Night Raw and you put him in the world title scene with Gunther, because we've already seen it with those two and what they can do in the ring.
I'm going to say
let's run it back, but this time for the world title.
I'm going to say it this way. Drew doesn't even have to come back as a babyface. I know you said that. It could be something along the lines of Gunther.
He could be a tweener.
He could be a tweener, because Drew McIntyre as a babyface, great talent, can make it work. Drew McIntyre as a heel is probably some of the most underrated heel work. In 10 years' time, people need to talk about how good Drew McIntyre's heel work is, as on the same levels of an MJF, as a Miz. Like, those guys always get talked about of being some of the best heels in the business. I'm telling you right now, Drew McIntyre needs to be in that conversation. But that's maybe a whole nother video, Jack. Guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and put the bell on for all notifications. We'll see you tomorrow.